All right, well, thanks for joining. This is going to be a fairly short and quick. That's the point. Give you some useful information, let you get back to work. But wanted to share some concepts around amplifying your brand. This is part of an ebook, which I'm actually going to have out on a landing page later today. You'll be able to go take a look at about 20 different items from myself and some other friends and partners out in the ecosystem that have some other ideas around branding and business development and measurement to help amplify your brand as well. But be looking for that. And I'll share a link out to everybody that participated today. And I'll have it out on Facebook, which we're also live streaming on. So it'll be lots of places to find the content. But with that, let's get started here. If I can forward my slide. Jump back over to that view. There we go. Just a little bit about Collab Talk. For those that are not familiar with me, my background, or my company, Collab Talk, we're an independent research and technical marketing services company. I'm based out of the Salt Lake Valley, but all over the world at events. I'll be out at Microsoft Ignite in Orlando all this next week, and be it in South Africa and over in Austria and in Ireland later this fall. Lots going on here. We do, as they say here, take a collaborative approach to everything that we do. So Collab Talk actually started almost 6 years ago as a community effort to get different voices involved in to talk about and solve problems primarily within the Microsoft ecosystem. But what we're talking about here today, it's not tied to any vendor, any ecosystem. These are broader topics that will help marketing organizations in general. So what is the technology evangelism? So here's this role I've had as an evangelist and as chief evangelist for a number of years. Of course, I have my undergrad in marketing. I've got an MBA in technology management that's essentially a marketing degree as well. But it was about my first 20 years of working experience where I was not really in a marketing role per se, but I had been in very entrepreneurial roles. I had been part of, I was trying to count this up, I think 7 acquisitions, some major, the companies that I've worked for or companies that I've started. So it's, with all of that entrepreneurial effort going on, these core concepts around evangelism, it really kind of helped shape my sense that is, now that I'm in marketing role and I'm a consultant that works with companies primarily in technology fields to expand on their brands and their messaging and positioning. All of that learning, all of those experiences as an entrepreneur really helped shape what my focus is here today. And I'm just going to touch on 7, I think, highlights of what's in the longer ebook that'll be out later today, but that are, I think, essential for going out there. And whether you are doing this as part of a larger team in an organization, or you have your own company that you're starting up, or even if you're an individual, maybe you have a full-time job, but you're looking to leverage that experience, that expertise over into a broader community role to increase the volume of content and visitors to your personal blog. All of these things can be relevant even in those scenarios. So what is this evangelism? I define it as this, it's really viewed as kind of a key driver of those brand awareness activities, such as the new product introductions. So you've got some software that you've developed or your team has launched, that go-to-market strategy, which can be product or service or the company brand related. There are even companies that don't have anything new to report, and yet they go through and they clean up their messaging and positioning, and then they have a brand new go-to-market strategy to go and kind of refresh the way that people look at that brand. And then there's the thought leadership piece, going out and creating content, demonstrating your level of expertise or becoming that expert within your community. Now, the role of evangelist is more commonly aligned with marketing, but I don't think that's actually the right place for it. It's a better fit along with engineering and product development. In fact, where technology evangelism works well is because you're talking about an individual or a team that is out with community. Maybe they are more of like a sales engineering, type role, but is customer-facing, partner-facing, working with various vendors and OEMs. This is a person that generally understands the needs of the customer, the voice of the customer, and understands the technology deep enough to be able to translate between the two of those things, and then comes up with creative ways to share that information, to help customers understand how a service or technology can fit into their business, how they can get more out of the technology that they are, or the business solution that they have invested in. That's, again, I keep saying the word technology because that's my perspective, but you can see how these things apply to any type of business. And then another part of this, and why you see more and more people that have evangelism within their title, is increasingly it's being viewed as this driving force, this main part of an inbound or content marketing strategy. This is the person who is writing those thought leadership pieces, blog posts, white papers, ebooks, that is out speaking at conferences, that is doing customer visits, and really showcasing your products and services. And so it just makes sense that this person or these people that are producing this volume of content and videos and audio, your podcasts and other things, that content then becomes central to how your business goes out and builds out that brand. And I would say that organizations that are not leveraging what their people are doing, with their individual brands. So just because somebody is in, to their personal blog, they're talking about work-related topics. If you as a company is not leveraging that, I'm not saying to change that, to make it corporate, but to support these people that are doing this organic brand awareness. Talking about problems as well as successes with your product or services, but in this more casual narrative, then I think you're missing a huge opportunity to really connect with your community. And that's another part of what evangelism, where it works well. When it's not corporate, meaning it's not talking points, it's not about having that canned message, but let people go and put it in their own words. Let them develop relationships, those authentic relationships. That's what evangelism is about. And then regardless of the title, it is an increasingly important role. So whether they have that title, you do have people that are out providing this kind of evangelism, or I prefer the term advocacy, because you don't want just customers. You want advocates, people that understand what you do, understand how you do it and why it's the best, if it's the best. If not, they know why. But then they become advocates. So they become your best salespeople. And in this day and age where we are just constantly barraged with marketing messages, it's no wonder why the typical sale includes like 10 to 12 marketing touches before a customer even engages, even to demo something. All right. Let's jump into this. Now, I do want, just at a high level, I'm going to be cutting across these focus areas. The ebook goes into a little more detail around this. There's really 4 areas of focus around amplification. So the first is around the brand, having a solid brand. So the actual look and feel, it's important on your website, like how, the color scheme, how it looks. Just like people don't like to live and work in a cluttered environment. They don't want to work with brands if your website is a mess, if your brand is confusing. And so that's why it makes sense to spend time cleaning that up. Messaging and positioning, of course, that is second to that brand, but understanding where you fit your story. I find myself saying over and over again is like, what is your elevator pitch? What is your 2 quick sentences to describe what it is that you do, so that it's not supposed to try and explain everything. It's supposed to get the person to say, all right, well, then how do you do that? Well, tell me more about that. And then you go into that longer version to describe what you go and do. Like as I described, my elevator pitch for Collab Talk is we're an independent research and technical marketing services company. And people that understand a little bit about that, they say, well, what are you doing around research? Or what do you do? What kind of marketing services do you do? It's like, okay, well, that then lets me jump into the next layer of detail. So understanding that is also key. having content. I think it's funny. It's like I read on LinkedIn, a good friend of mine shared a link to an article that was this marketing fluff of how you go and be successful with marketing, and it listed off like be passionate, like that kind of, let's face it, crap. Like, yes, you need to be passionate. I'm not saying you don't need to be passionate about that. That doesn't help anybody. It's an empty platitude of what marketing, what it actually takes to go and expand that and build on that brand. And so I'm trying to avoid that. While the titles, the 7, it's going to be higher level. I'm going to provide some detail behind that. But having content is key to everything that you're doing today. Content is so critical to be able to leverage any marketing automation, to have any kind of measurement. I often tell customers, in fact, I just said this last night in another conversation, is that you can't measure something that's not moving forward. If there's no progress, if you're not taking action, then having the most finely tuned metrics around your marketing is just asinine. What are you measuring? What do you intend to be able to say at the end of a month, a quarter, or even a year, if you've been so focused on constantly shifting your metrics and understanding page views and visitors without, and I'm not saying not to have those things, but if you're so overwhelmed by the analytics that you're unable to move forward, you're messed up. It's backwards. You need content. You need movement forward. And then finally, the other focus is the promotional activities. This is a frustration. I actually have services that my company provides purely because companies are so incredibly bad at the promotion. You might spend hundreds or thousands of dollars, certainly tens or dozens of hours developing this awesome content that is branded, your messaging and positioning is there, the content is wonderful, and then you fail to do anything with that. You need to promote the content. You need you can't just tweet it out there a couple times and it's up on we mentioned it in a blog post and it's out there. I mean, there's a number of different channels to get that promotion out there, and you need to try different things. But you can't then expect that, hey, there's content. We developed that 6 months ago. It's old. It's like, well, either you developed it in the wrong way or you're not adequately leveraging what you've already gone and built. And I often talk about, my customers hear me say this going and creating derivative works off of those key or hero content pieces. It is so critical as part of the overall strategy. All right, with that, let's go ahead and jump into the list of the 7 steps. So these are really kind of the core. In the ebook, I go into a bit more detail around this, but I'll talk about each one of these. So it's really, I think, only 2 more slides here. This one and then the wrap-up slide. So just a bulleted list. Going to go through and talk about these very quickly. First, think about things in terms of campaigns. Don't create one-offs. Now, it's one thing to go and look and say, well, like I work in the Microsoft ecosystem and Microsoft releases a new product or a new feature, and I just go and I create a blog post around this new feature, this new product. Even in that case, I think about that in terms of a campaign that I have. Every time I'm doing an update of this OEM's technology, I'm categorizing that content in a way that I could go back and reuse the last month. Here are all my updates on this, on what Microsoft has done, and package that up in a number of different ways to demonstrate that thought leadership, to create other content, to leverage the community. But when you think in terms of campaigns, it's looking at all the different pieces, the derivative works that you can go and create, and creating that, if I'm overusing the term, I apologize, but amplifying the effect of that content that you create. You create a white paper. You then have, in that white paper, maybe 4 different concepts that you discuss. You then have a blog post that features each of those concepts. All 4 blog posts point to that white paper to download that. Now, off of that blog post, you might then go create other versions of that same content for other channels. That's on your blog. Maybe you go do something out on LinkedIn or out on Medium or on your Facebook page, the company page, which is a standalone, unique from an SEO standpoint. It's a new article, a new post, but referring back to that same piece. The amount of work that's done is less because you're leveraging all of these same pieces, and all of your social communications, all of your promotional activities all roll up and tie to that as well. All of that work based off of that one hero piece, that one piece of content, all within that campaign. And then the timing of the release of each of these pieces that keeps that campaign up and running and warm. So you could have the white paper that's released on day one of the fourth quarter, and then a blog post on this topic going out once a week. Then you have a month of weekly content pushing back to that same piece that you pushed out a month ago. And you're more likely to drive better and warm contacts in and downloads of that white paper because of that. So thinking in terms of campaign is critical. Always having a call to action. So critical having the call to action. It is, that call to action is at the end of that blog post, at the end of the white paper, as the end, as part of a tweet. It's great to go on there and occasionally just say something, hey, this is really cool. What are you talking about? Is there an image? Is there a URL to back to? Are you sharing a link to something? So having a call to action at the end of the blog, like even if you're talking about, it's a thought leadership piece where you're talking about this cool new thing that came out and you have an opinion about that might be relevant in some way to what your company does. At the end of that, then the natural question for customers say, okay, I just read this update on this new technology, and you take a very neutral stance. How is this relevant to your company? What does your company do in relation to that topic? Having then that call to action to say, hey, come demo our product, we do this, or take a look at this other blog post on a related topic, or download this other piece. Having that call to action so that there's a next step for someone to go and do. Going back to having all that content in place and having the right metrics to measure the success is that you tell me if it would be a better metric to understand, hey, someone visited my site, okay, it's good to know who they are and that they visited your website, read your content. More relevant, however, to the sales process, to the conversion activity, is to understand that they visited that blog, jumped over to another blog based on that call to action, downloaded a white paper, and signed up for a webinar. As a salesperson, I would look at that pattern. What were they reading? That would then tell me where their interest is. If there's that depth of movement within the website, that they might be a hot prospect that I need to go and follow up on. So always have that call to action and be looking at and measuring the conversion activity. So filling out a form, signing up for a webinar, all of those kinds of activities. Increasing your frequency. And this is something that I know I have disagreements with a few folks that are out there. A bare minimum for any company that has a pulse will be twice a week new content out on their site. Again, the world of marketing is driven by content. And if you are not, I say 2 a week is the bare minimum. You should be doing more than that. I mean, I would say 3 to 4 pieces a week, maybe 2 on your blog, another article that's out in a central place like CMS Wire or some digital magazine that's out there that you develop a relationship with. If you want to grow community, if you want to grow leads coming into your company and extend your brand, you need to have content in multiple channels out there. And so just doing 1 post a week, or like some companies, 1 or 2 posts a month, you just can't do that and expect to grow. Just simple. Increase the frequency of the content. And if you are thinking in terms of campaign, and you have those other derivative works that are built off of that, it's going to be easier to do that, increase that frequency. Partnering with others is another way to increase that frequency. One of my favorite things to do is to reach out, and I just did it this morning with 2 different partners on 2 different pieces of content, where I have my ideas that I want to go and promote in content and articles, and I've reached out and asked others for a quote or to add an opinion on a specific topic and allow you to add that content into your piece. You can also go and look at partners and other influencers out in your space, out in your community, see what they're writing about, and then your blog post or an article that you create, a piece of content you create, would just point to their content, and then you share your opinion that you agree or disagree with them on that. That's just a great way that you can very quickly go find people that have a shared sense of purpose they're trying to go and do, and you align, you can partner on this, and very quickly generate more content, more output. And then also on the back end, once that piece is completed, to co-promote. I have a customer that worked with for a couple months on a very large ebook, a 25-page ebook. And so they're out there promoting, they're getting good numbers around that. But I'm also very proud of that piece. And so the fact that I co-authored this piece with the CEO of this company, now I'm also promoting that, helping them, helping me with my individual and my company brand. But that is something, just you have that network effect by partnering with others. The next one, make it easy to share. It's incredible in this day and age that you have companies that are creating the website, they have the product out there, and there's not share buttons. I know you can always grab a URL and paste it in somewhere in an email or out on social on your Hootsuite or TweetDeck or Buffer account. Yes, you can go and do that. Do people take that extra step? Sometimes they don't. I'd say in most cases they don't. So you want to make that as easy as possible it's not just about blog posts, but every page of your website when you're describing products and services, make that page shareable so that, if somebody says, hey, take a look at what this company's product is, this may be what we need. Again, just remove that pause in somebody's decision-making process of, what do I need to go and do this? I can't really. You know what, I'll just, this will be confusing for somebody. Just put a button there that lets them share that content out there. But that's also the same with call to action. You have in your ebooks and white papers, having links back to that source, that digital source, or to your website. So you want to cross-pollinate across your content in different formats to make sure that people can find that, where that lives, where that belongs. Create a shortened URL. If you're going to do printed materials, brochures, white papers, things like that, have your URL. Have the longer version that gets that specific content or survey or activity, whatever that is, in a shortened URL. So it's really easy to share that content. Promotion. I talk about this a lot, the following the rule of the thirds. And this is really relevant with that social activity. The most successful brands, whether personal or companies, follow this law of the thirds, that a third of the tweets of the content of what you're promoting it's allowed to promote your content, your company, your brand, your content, events that you're doing. So talking about the company, having some kind of pitch there. A third, no more than a third of what you're doing around your promotions. A third of it should be subject matter expertise. And I don't care if you're in technology field or not. Well, that's the majority of my experience. I think it remains the same, that you want to show that you're an expert, but in a neutral way. So it's not an expert and download our product, an expert and sign up for a webinar. That pitch part of it, remove that. But this is where, like, Microsoft comes out with an announcement of a new product, a new feature in Microsoft Office. It's relevant to productivity. And so I go write an article, a blog post about that new feature without pitching my company, without having, maybe I'll share some opinion on that because people are looking for that opinion. But demonstrating that subject matter expertise should be a third of what you do. So this allows people it builds that authentic relationship, that level of trust with customers, to know that, hey, you know what, this company may not do what we're looking for in this space, but I really trust their opinion on that. They're talking about this and they've said this and this. I might reach out with other questions. And then there's an opportunity, if your company actually does something in that space, that there's an opportunity to have that engagement with that level of trust with that customer. And then the third piece of the thirds, the last piece of that is having that personal, show the man behind the curtain, perspective of you and your company. So to show that there are actual human beings, that it's not just automated, it's not just bots, or it's not a third-party vendor that is doing all of your tweets and promotion, that you hear the people behind that. So, team offsites, just retweeting of employees, things that they're doing. Of course, keep it professional, but demonstrating there's that human side. I would say stay away from religion, politics, and keep it PG. But having that blend of that pitch, so the company promotion, the subject matter expertise, and that personality, the cultural aspect, are critical to have all three in equal measure as you're going out and doing your promotion, especially social promotions. And the last one is defending your brand. And that doesn't mean that if somebody's out there saying something negative, hey, they may have a valid point, but it is being aware of what's happening with your brand. Care about how your marketing pieces look, how your advertising looks, how your products and services are being received within the community. Be aware if there are trolls that are trashing you out on Reddit. That's where trolls like to live, is on Reddit. But be aware of what is being said and answer. Be authentic. Redirect them to sources to clarify that, or to recognize where there are shortcomings. But be there, own the brand, and have individuals. That's why this evangelism is so key, so that develop these advocates for the brand. Be the advocate for your brand, and recognize where it needs to be improved. Own it, but defend it. And so that's my experience. This is a snapshot of what it takes to really amplify your brand. I know that a lot of people look at the list of things and say, oh, we're doing all of that, and we're still not finding success. And so I would say that you're probably not doing all of these things, certainly not consistently. It takes time. It takes, for larger brands, and depending on what you're doing, it could take years. It's about making a cultural change in how you approach your marketing, not just going and looking for a quick turnaround, a quick win. You can't just assume that you're going to win the hearts and minds of every potential customer out there because, hey, we made it available out there and we paid a lot for a Facebook and LinkedIn advertising campaign. You need to have all of these fundamentals in place and be practicing them regularly to be able to benefit from them. And so just to conclude here, so this is something that I write and talk a lot about. You can find out more, certainly, about the services that Collab Talk provides. You can reach me here, cbuck@collabtalk.com, if you've got any questions. Again, take a look at my blog. I'm not that I'm perfect with doing all these things. We get busy, and it's a team of one that's doing the promotion for my little company. Of course, I've got a team that provides some of these other services. If you are looking for help around, in the amplification space, in your messaging and positioning, and actually managing the day-to-day of your social channels, these are all things that Collab Talk can help provide. But other than that, happy to answer any questions that come up. Just send me an email and let's start a conversation there. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up, let you get back to your day, and thanks a lot for participating.